Good morning, everybody. This is Congressman Jason Crow joining you from Washington, D.C. I'm in Washington for a few weeks as we vote on really important bills like the Justice and Policing Act, and we try to keep things moving forward during this very difficult time with an economic downturn and the pandemic that is sweeping across our country and community. Thank you for joining us. This is the next in our series of our virtual job fair and training series. As many of you might know, last year we held the first ever 6th Congressional District Job Fair. And we had over 1,000 job seekers and over 60 employers come together and exchange ideas and resumes, and many people got jobs out of that event. We were really excited to kick it off. As you know, unfortunately, we can't do the same thing this year. We can't bring everybody together on the same campus because of the coronavirus, but we wanted to actually replicate that as close as we could and provide a service to the community, much like we did last year. So we came up with the idea of doing this virtual job fair, which is kicking off this series of trainings from resume building to looking for jobs on the internet. And after we go through the series of trainings, then our office is going to set up a virtual job board, which is hopefully going to connect job seekers with employers throughout the community and help people move forward. Because even though we can't be together in person, what we do know is that it's more important than ever that we provide this service. And because tens of millions of Americans, tens of thousands within the 6th Congressional District are now unemployed because of the coronavirus and the economic challenges that we're facing. So it's more important than ever that we come together and we help each other out. So we're really honored to be joined by Erica Hines tonight with the Community College of Aurora, who's going to be presenting tonight and conducting the training. So with no further ado, I want to hand it over to Erica. And I really appreciate your time tonight, Erica, and the partnership that we have with the Community College of Aurora to provide this really important service. So thank you again for joining us. We will get through this challenging time together. Americans and Coloradans and members of the 6th Congressional District, we are at our best when we come together and we focus on what we have to have in common, come together as one and help each other out. And that's what we're going to do, and we will get through this. So thank you, and I will turn it over to Erica Hines of the Community College of Aurora for tonight's training.
Thank you so much, Congressman. I'm really excited to be able to present tonight and to talk to everybody a little bit about LinkedIn networking. So as was mentioned, my name is Erica Hines. I am the Director of Career Services at the Community College of Aurora. And so I'm really excited to talk about LinkedIn and networking and hopefully build up all of your connections and networks, even while we're all still safely social distancing from home. All right, so today we'll be talking about making connections in the digital age. And so there's 4 different components that we'll be talking about here, which is going to be networking and the importance of that, the basics of LinkedIn, how to stand out beyond the basics, and then also a couple of neat features in LinkedIn that maybe people did not know about before. So starting off, what is networking? Networking can be a really intimidating term for a lot of people. It's something that a lot of people shy away from because they're worried about being judged and other people judging what you're doing and how you're communicating and your past experiences. And that's really a place that puts us in a vulnerable position. But networking in a positive frame is actually really building connections. And so what that really boils down to is being able to gather information about people that can help you as you move forward within your career, whether that is job search or if that is something like getting ready for a promotion, or if you are still in college and getting ready to just kind of jump out in the world and just ready to get some experience. And so networking allows us to provide support and also get advice from other people. It's a two-way street. It's not something that is just you going out and saying, please help me. It is really there to be a collaboration for you to yes, get some support and be able to build up your own network and connections, but also to be a support for other people who might also find value in what you have to offer in your skills. This also helps to establish your reputation, especially on a platform like LinkedIn, which is very widely available to other people, for them to just see what you're up to and how are you relevant and staying active within the field. And it allows you to be selfish in a good way. It is okay to think about yourself when you are networking and really think strategically about the relationships that you're building and the connections and partners that you're able to connect with as you are going through this process. So, what does that mean when it's actually in practice, though? And we can move to the next slide. So, really, networking is something that can be anywhere, right? It's not something that is just online. It's something that started originally in person, face-to-face, going out for coffee, having a happy hour meeting, reaching out to someone, whether that was going into their office and just saying, hey, do you have 5 minutes to talk? I have a couple of questions. Or calling someone up, all the way into now when we're in the digital age, to be able to really connect with people online and kind of scope them out ahead of time. So there's different types of networking events that you can attend or ways that you can connect with people. One of those is industry related, right? So if you're in something like the IT field or if you're in administration, finding an industry related group for what you're doing. There's also age group related networking events, which can be something that a lot of people find comfort in, right? When we have so many different populations that are working together, being able to have someone who connects and communicates on the same level as you, whether you are in the boomers age or if you're a millennial or Gen X, or now that we're getting into Gen Z, right? Everybody has these different communication styles. And so having those age group related networking events can also be really helpful for people. Also, alumni connections, and we'll talk a little bit about this later. LinkedIn has a really neat alumni function that we'll be talking about. But being able to establish a group of mentors, establishing teachers, right? Not just ending those relationships when you have graduated from college or letting those die, but go back and find those mentors, go back and find those teachers from when you were back in college, or if you are still there, then be able to find them on LinkedIn. Many of them have a LinkedIn account so that you can still use them for all the resources and that wealth of knowledge that they have within the field. And then the final piece is volunteering within the groups and the events that are all out there. Can be a great opportunity, of course, for getting experience, but also to build those relationships that you already have. And again, do that in a less intimidating way than just going out and asking for help. Next slide. So again, talking about the generations, there are so many differences between how the different generations communicate. And so just having an understanding of how we have gotten to where we are. A lot of our baby boomers, right? It was a lot of in-person and networking and connection and just going in and, you know, as easy as handing them a resume or even just talking about your experiences that you've had. And then we got into Generation X, right? When the computers first started coming out, when we first started getting cell phones and being able to really work through that and being able to go into things like coffee shops and having more of the restaurant bar scene type of networking events. Then we jump into Gen Y, which is our millennials, right? Which really kicked off with technology right away as they were very young, growing up with technology, being able to see the evolution of something like YouTube and being the foundation for Twitter and Facebook and the very roots of how we first started to network online and how that worked. And then now, of course, Gen Z, who has never known anything different from this, right? And so they're on things like TikTok and they're on Twitter all the time and they're on Snapchat. And all of these different platforms are ways that we can use to network, and they're ways that we can informally build these connections and build up our own personality as a professional. We also have a difference between reality versus reality TV, right? A lot of companies on their website will put that perfect reality TV, what they want you to see, right? This is what's great about our company. This is what, you know, we want everyone to see. And a lot of times that is accurate to a company, but we're missing those inner details of, okay, what's it really like to be here? What's it like to be an employee here? And that's where that true reality comes into LinkedIn, so that we can really have a stronger idea of what we're getting into before we actually jump into a new position or start making those connections and applying for positions. And then we have those classic ideas for just being able to be a networker. So of course, handshakes are frowned upon right now, but you can still do a virtual handshake, which is essentially a smile, a strong introduction, all the stuff that comes with that handshake. The confidence, being really comfortable with who you are and being really willing and open for the conversation that hopefully is going to come out of that. Elevator pitches, knowing what you want to talk about, knowing what questions you have and what's important for yourself to be able to talk to others about. Something that we have really lost is thank you notes. These are some things that Generation X and the baby boomers generations were really, really great at, was being able to write a thank you note after each interaction. And we've really lost some of that personal touch lately because everything is so digital. But using something like email, using something like Messenger and LinkedIn messaging to send a thank you is so important to bring that personal touch back in and be able to have that personal connection brought back in an age where everything is touch of a button. You can go to the next slide now. So what does this all mean? Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all the other platforms that I've already mentioned. We can go to the next slide. It's really about the basics. It's all about connecting. It's all about that foundation of how do we connect with people. And so for LinkedIn, LinkedIn is great because it's a free networking tool. It allows you to test out the different relationship and opportunities that are out there before you go and connect. So you can look at profiles of people, you can look at the companies, and you can do some research before you actually reach out and be able to get a feel based on someone else's experience to see, is this going to be a meaningful connection for me to reach out to? Like I said, it's okay to be selfish. We want connections and relationships that are going to be mutually beneficial in both directions. Connecting your profile and creating your profile. We'll talk a little bit about this in the next screen, but we want to make sure that we have a profile that is intentional for where we want to go. Now, when I say intentional, I mean that we want to write our profile and we want to talk about our past experiences in a way that shoots us towards the future. We want to be able to talk about our past experiences and what is relevant about those experiences in the lens that we're wanting to go. So if you're someone who worked in retail for a long time and you're making a transition into administration, what are those pieces that you used in retail that are really beneficial for going into administration? That customer service, the detail orientation that you might have used in certain tasks. Those things are the things that we really want to highlight when we are creating our profile, so that people who look at your profile aren't just saying, oh, okay, this person worked in retail, maybe they're not the best fit, but they're saying, oh wow, this person did this, this, and this, and here's how that's really connected to what we're doing at our company. In LinkedIn, like I said, you're putting in that employment history, you're talking about your education, any certificates that you've had, any additional training, even if you didn't necessarily get a degree, right? If you did a webinar training, or if you did a workshop, or if you went to a event where you were able to pick up a new coding skill or Python or anything that adds to that portfolio of where you want to go, put that on LinkedIn because employers want to know that. Internships, right? Just like a job. Internships are also great for you to be able to put those skill sets into your profile for other people to be able to see. And then going back to earlier with the value that professors and previous leaders and mentors that you've had, find them on LinkedIn and connect with them and see what they're up to and what are they reading and what do they follow. And that can give you some direction for places that you can start if you're getting onto LinkedIn for the first time and you're like, I have no idea what to look at right away. Next slide. So this is just an example of a profile. So this is Liz Ryan, and she has her summary. It talks a little bit about the past, but notice how it is very future oriented in this summary that she puts here. She talks about her vision. She talks about, this is what I thought of, but here's why that's important to where I am now. Next slide. Thank you. Another important piece is that we want to be able to be cognizant of our own security and our own safety. LinkedIn, just like Facebook, just like any other web page, is public, and things that are on the web can be seen by other people, whether or not we have different things private. And so always be cognizant of what you're posting on here, similar to Facebook, what you are adding, what you are sharing, what you're liking on here. And then just go into your privacy settings when you have your account and make sure that your privacy settings are set to something that you are comfortable with. Who do you want to be able to see your other connections? Who do you want to be able to see your email address? Who do you want to be able to see your full name? You can add all of these things on there if you're comfortable with that. And in the same way, you can also take some of those details off so that you can feel more comfortable with your own privacy. Along these lines, if you're adding a resume onto LinkedIn, I always encourage people to take your address, your actual full street address, off of your resume before uploading it to LinkedIn. You can keep your zip code, you can keep your city if you're comfortable with that, but take off the physical address because, again, this is a public online site and we would just want to make sure that we're safe in the information that we are sharing on here. Next slide. So here's where we start getting into the good stuff, right? So once you've set up your profile, once you have put some of those details about the experiences that you've had, once you put the information about past projects that you've had, you start adding some of those connections, you start following a couple of companies, then you can start to do some of this other stuff. So first off, joining groups. Find things that are interesting to you. Find those groups that are related to what you're wanting to do and find people who are in your field that can help you with that, right? So it's great to build connections with people individually, but it's also great to join a whole group where you have that full community of support so that you're not waiting on maybe one person to answer a message, but so that you can put out a question and you have an entire group of people who are there to support and reflect and can really engage with you and brainstorm with you on whatever that question you have is. And we'll look at that in just a minute. Also, exploring the conversation. See what is in the news feed. What are the trends that are happening? What are important players within your field talking about? And do a little bit of research on that. This can help you out when you get to that interview phase, because then you're able to talk a little bit about the current events and you can start to relate that. And then your employer that you're talking to in that interview can start to think, ooh, this person really knows what they're talking about. This is really important to us. Also, let's continue to talk, right? And they want to continue that conversation beyond the interview and hopefully hire you on into a new position. So exploring that conversation, making sure that you're staying up to date and relevant with what other people are talking about, and then also chiming in with your own thoughts on that to be able to be a part of that conversation rather than just an observer. We also have the alumni function. I love this function, especially as someone who currently works within a college. And I was at Colorado State University in their career services before this, and it's great for 4 years, 2 years. It's great for our international students. It's just a really fantastic function, again, about building up that community and being able to leverage relationships and connections that you already have, right? So joining these groups, joining alumni functions, participating in conversations, you already have at least, if not more than one thing in common, right? If you've already graduated from the same university or the same institution, then you already know, hey, we have that one thing in common. And then if they're interested in the same field as you, great, you already have 2 things in common with this person that you can start talking about. So it's not just this awkward feeling of, okay, I'm gonna reach out to this person, they seem like a great person, what do I say? It's more of a, I'm gonna reach out to this person and I'm going to mention, hey, I noticed that we're both graduates of Colorado State University's higher education program from 2017. Let's talk a little bit about that. Or you graduated in 2015, I graduated in 2017. Let's talk about that. So use those small talk conversation openers to be able to build that network in a more authentic way rather than just jumping in right away and saying, hey, help me, please. And then last, following those companies. Again, being able to follow your previous employers. If they were a great company and they gave you a lot of good connections, follow them, see what they're up to now. Being able to see what impact maybe you had at that company shown through their current work that they're still doing. Looking at possible employers, people that you're interested in working for, follow those companies. Beyond that, find people who work at those companies that you're interested in working at and be able to build connections with them so that, again, you have that reality TV vision of, okay, this is what the company wants me to see, these are the great things that are happening there, but then also having that realistic, down-to-earth kind of conversation with someone who's actually there and can tell you the ins and outs of what's actually happening and how, on the more small and everyday life, does that mission get carried out. And then also leaders in the industry. Every industry has people that it looks up to and who are kind of revolutionaries within that topic. So go out and find those for you and see how they can benefit you and, again, keep you up to date. And here I'm going to ask if I can share my screen. So that we can just look at a couple of these. And by the way, if any of you have any questions, please use that Q&A function, and I'll be able to get to those questions that you might have. Or of course, at the end, I'll be able to also answer any questions that you all have. So this is LinkedIn, professional Facebook, right? So it has all of these people on here. It has companies that I'm interested in, companies that are in my field, within my pathways that my students might be interested in, just all of this great information. Over on the right column, it also has today's news and views. So just seeing what's happening in the world in general and thinking about how does that affect my position? How does that affect where I want to go in the future? So if you click on the search bar, then there are some different options that pop up here. So if you just want to look for people, you can look for people. And you can click on people and you can type in an industry or a keyword that you think relates if you want to find a specific person. Same thing with jobs. You can type in a specific company name, and we'll look at that in just a little bit. Content, if you're interested in a particular topic or something that's happening, you can search for that. Companies, schools, groups, and events. So we're going to start off with groups. And if I'm looking for a group, let's say in technology in Denver, then I can just type that into my search bar and it's going to give me all of these different groups that I might be interested in. Whoops, these are positions. Groups. So 100 different results for Denver information technology. We have Denver information technology professionals. We have all of these groups. And so if I click on it, it'll typically give you a little bit of information about the group. And it'll also give you a little bit of information about, are the people in this group connected to me in any way? Am I connected based on education? Am I connected based on people that I am already connected to on LinkedIn? People within higher education, which is my industry? We can look at that. And then if you're like, ooh, yeah, this sounds great, request to join it. And then you can see all the conversations that they're having. And then, so that's groups. And then we're going to look at institutions. So if you go up into the search bar, you can, obviously I work at CCA, so that's my go-to right now. But if you, let's say, graduated from University of Denver, then you can click on University of Denver. And so on here, of course, it's going to have all the general information that they want you to see. But over here on the left column, there is an alumni box. And so if you go onto this, then it'll give you all of this really great information. So we get to see, where are these people? This can be really great for people who are planning on relocating to a different place, or maybe have located to Denver, but maybe you went to school in a different place. Who are people who graduated from your institution who are in this area? You can also see where these people are working. You can filter it by when they graduated from. So obviously DU has a lot of alumni on here, almost 80,000. That can be a lot to filter through. And so you can also just make that a smaller population. We can also sidestep and look at what they do. So where are these people working? Look at what they studied when they were in school. And keep in mind, not everybody who studied a certain major or graduated with a certain degree are doing that exact thing. So I tend to lean more towards what they're doing now. So if we're on that IT field still, and we click on, okay, someone from IT, what they studied in IT, obviously a lot of them are here. If you're thinking about going back to school and you're interested in seeing what people studied who are in a particular field, you can look at this and it will also give you lots of information. And then what they're skilled at. So this can be great if you are, let's say, learning a new skill and you're looking for a mentor who can help you out with that. So for something like IT, right, if you're still trying to figure out Microsoft Office, you can look for people who have that skill. Or if you're looking for something like data analysis, you can look up people who are doing that. But basically, you go through, you click any of the filters that you're interested in, right? If I want, okay, people from DU who studied IT, who are in the Denver area, I click all of these filters, or if I'm not finding them, you can type it in up here in the top area. And then when you're done filtering and you're comfortable with that, if you just scroll to the bottom, then it gives you all the people who fit that search criteria for you. And that gives you all of these people that you can then start looking at to see, okay, who do I want to be my next connection? Who do I want to start engaging with? And it's really neat on LinkedIn because it tells you who's already connected with these people. So on some of these, I have 4 connections, 2 connections, 3 connections. So I already have a mutual person who knows these people that I can either reach out directly to and say, hey, Courtney, can you help me reach out to Aaron? He is a child welfare social caseworker, and I really want to learn more about what he's doing. Then you can have that mutual person connect, or you can just look up their profile and see, okay, I was looking at IT, I'm not quite sure how exactly this is relevant to that. And you can look a little bit more about what does that look like. So experience. And this is where you can see that it's really important for you to fill out your profile also, because the more information you have, the easier it is for other people to be able to see you and connect with you also. So we can see all these things and get ideas for what we might want to do in the future or who we might want to follow. So there's different licenses that this person has, different schools that they went to, different endorsements. Endorsements are another piece of LinkedIn that are really neat, because essentially if you know someone who can basically vouch for a skill that you have, then they can endorse you on LinkedIn. And then the more endorsements you have, it's basically just more evidence to supply to the employers that says, hey, this person actually does have leadership. This person actually does have public speaking skills. They're not just saying that they have it, they actually do have it, and they have shown that to all of these other people. So that's where the alumni function is really helpful. And I'll go ahead and stop sharing and we can go back to the slide. Perfect. So I do see a question here that I'll answer really quick while we get back to the slide. Is it true that companies can pay money to be able to see when I visited their page? That makes me very scared. I don't want to look at my old employers or a new employer and let them know. It feels creepy to me. Is there a way to avoid that? So yes, if a company has premium access, then they can sometimes look at if you have visited their page. Same thing with individual people. They can see sometimes if you have visited their page. This is something that you can look at in your privacy settings and adjust a little bit. However, unfortunately, you can't 100% get that out because people are paying for this information and paying for this data. However, being able to just look at the company and see kind of what's happening in general. Typically, the company in general is going to be less, I guess, less intensive on who exactly is looking at the company page versus the individuals. So if you're going onto an old supervisor's page, then they're probably going to see that, and that's just kind of a question to have with yourself on, okay, is this really a page that I want to be looking at, and what purpose does this serve me to be able to look at their page? All right, so searching for jobs, there are a couple of different ways that we can do this. So one of them is just a general search, as we just saw in that last screen, where you can just type in whatever it is that you're looking for, and a lot of things pop up. Or you can go in and you can do a filtered search. And so in that, you can see that there are a lot of different topics that you can filter by. You can filter by when a position was posted. For me, a lot of times I want to look at the more recently posted positions because I know that they're still open. Whereas positions that are older than a month, I sometimes am starting to think, okay, is this worth it? Has it maybe closed? Has someone maybe forgotten to take it down? And so I tend to look at the more recent ones, but definitely if you have the time and you are okay with having that filter a little bit longer out, then you can have it adjusted to beyond a month. Also, there's the different features. If you're wanting to look at the easy application, right? If you've already uploaded your resume onto LinkedIn, you can select easy apply. So that way it's basically, you click a button, it sends your resume off rather than having to fill out an entire application on its own. You can search by job type, location. So location is interesting because you don't get to type in anything extra in the advanced search. So this is where the top bar where I typed in Denver, Colorado, helped so that that location was specific to the Denver area. If you leave that location blank in the top bar, then it's just going to give you major cities where there are a lot of those positions. So if you're looking to relocate, then that's great because it can show you kind of those hot spots for that type of position. Otherwise, if you're looking for a specific area, type in the general city that you're looking at, and then it'll give you kind of those subcategories within that location. And then same thing, company, industry, job function, experience level, all of that great stuff. Next slide. So again, looking at relevant groups can be really helpful and be able to let you build up your network. Next slide. All right, so just some notes to keep in mind with LinkedIn. This is a free platform. Yes, you can upgrade to the premium, and basically what the premium platform gives you is just access to more resources. It gives you access so that you can look at a few extra pages for different companies and employers. It gives you the ability to use things like LinkedIn Learning, where it's basically a page of a bunch of small webinars and learning abilities. So if you are wanting to learn a new skill, or if you're really wanting to focus on, okay, I really need to practice on my interviewing skills, then that's where you can use LinkedIn Learning to be able to watch those videos or participate in those learning activities, which is included within that premium account. But for most people, just that free platform on LinkedIn is plenty to be able to get you started and help you do a lot of different things, especially just for networking. Research what people can do for you. Again, look at the company, look at the people that are there, especially if you find a position that you're interested in that company. Do some research and try to see if you can find a connection who's within that department of the company or at that company in general if it's a small one, and see if you can start building up that connection. You never know who is talking to who within that company. It could be something where you reach out, you approach that employee with being genuine and just curious and wanting to learn, and then maybe that employee goes up to their boss and says, hey, I talked to this really neat person today. They were interested in our company. They have these different skills. I know that we're hiring for this position. Maybe let's watch out for them. So being able to see how can these different connections and relationships help you to be able to get better at the way that you're networking and be able to learn more about the companies before you jump in with your application, especially when there's so many different positions and applications and trying to figure out, okay, who do I apply for? How do I apply? When do I apply? Who are the people? All of that good stuff. Also share it with your friends. Your friends are some of your best advocates, right? They know who you are. They know the skills that you have. And so if you tell them what you're looking for and you also add them on LinkedIn, they are some great people to be able to tell other people within their networks, hey, I have a friend, I have a person, they're really great at this. Maybe you should connect sometime. So again, it gets back to that mutual connection. Also being mindful of your time and others' time. So again, doing the research ahead of time and understanding, okay, what is it that I want out of this connection? What is it that I'm looking for in a new relationship or within my network? What am I lacking? What do I want to look for? So that way when you're going out and connecting with people, you're being mindful of those conversations that you're starting rather than just kind of talking in circles and the other person thinking, okay, I'm not sure exactly what you're asking. What's the ask here? Or what's happening? So just being intentional about that. And then also understanding that this is, again, a professional platform. So you want to make sure that you have that professional appearance, that you are communicating to other people, that you are responding to messages on time, that you are responding kindly and courteously, that you're not reaching out to people and coming across as rude. Again, in the age of digital technology, where we're very accustomed to short talk and being able to type as few words as possible, things can be misconstrued. So making sure that you're very intentional about saying please and thank you, and just using all of those kind of good manners things that you've picked up over the years. And then be careful of not getting stuck. So something like the alumni function, right? You can scroll through that for hours and you can always find new things and new people to look at. Same thing with the groups. You can scroll through groups for hours and you can find different things on there, and it's great, but just be cognizant of the time that you're spending on there. Just like anything else, you can get addicted to LinkedIn. You can fall down that wormhole and then come back out 3 hours later like, ooh, wow, it's midnight. Where did the time go? So just being mindful of that. I see I have a couple of other things in my Q&A still. So how do you turn off a previous search or alerts from an old job? So for that, basically what you can do is you can go into your privacy and you can change your privacy settings a little bit so that you're able to turn off the alerts that you're getting from, let's say if you had an old search and you said, I want to keep on hearing about these, you can go back into those settings and you can just turn that off. Otherwise, you can go into your search history box within your settings and you can also clear that. I want to keep working from home when COVID-19 is past. Is there a way to search on LinkedIn for jobs that are just working from home? I'm not positive if there is a way to look for just work from home jobs. I know though that there are some resources that are out in the community for that. And so if I get an email from you after this, I have my email on the last slide, and just let me know the question that you had and I can send you a webinar that I actually just listened to that was specific to people who are looking for remote work. And then Eileen, my colleague, has also just mentioned that you can search in the search bar and say remote work in there. But again, it's not going to capture everything, but you can try to filter with that. I'm just going to move on. I have a couple more slides and then I'll answer the rest of these questions. So next slide. So last few tips. Update your status, post in the discussion groups, connect with the industry experts, and then creating your own group. So updating your status shows that you are on top of it. It shows that you're there. There are few things worse in LinkedIn than reaching out to a person who never responds because they're not active in LinkedIn. And so if you are updating your status and posting and liking and commenting, then that tells people that you are active, that you're available, that if they message you, that you're going to respond. And so the more that you're able to just kind of keep up that feed and let people know that you're still around and you're still engaged is going to be great, so that you're not trying to pull all of the legwork and making all of the connections yourself. And you're also able to draw in other people to want to connect with you. Posting in the group discussions. Again, you can build so many strong relationships from those groups where there's a community and you can have those really thought-provoking conversations based on what you're putting in those chats. And then having a reason when you connect with the industry experts. Being intentional about the comments that you're making, sharing resources can be really great. If you find a link or a resource, especially if you've already built a connection, it can be really low maintenance for you to just kind of uphold those connections, right? A lot of people think okay, I got to go build out all of these connections, and they do a lot of work, but then they let them all just kind of stay stagnant after that. And you want to make sure that you're able to connect with a couple of people every month to be able to say like, hey, I saw this resource. I just thought that it would be relevant for you. Or, hey, just checking in. This is something that I thought of you when I thought of it. So just maintaining those relationships and maintaining the connections that you have can be really good. And on LinkedIn, really easy. It can be simple, as simple as commenting on a post that they have, or liking or celebrating on their post that they have. And if you're not finding something that you're looking for, create your own group. Find other people. There's always going to be other people out there who are interested in the same things that you, even if maybe nobody has thought to create a group for it before. So please create groups if you're not finding exactly what you're looking for, and then add your network and your friends and your connections and your mentors to that group. So final thoughts on here, and then I'll get back to the chat. How you establish yourself through networking is really important, regardless of whether that's in person, right, when we're able to go back to coffee shops, or be able to have those lunch meetings, or if that's something like online, which is a little bit more feasible right now. It all matters. So be respectful. Pay attention to what you're commenting to. Pay attention to what you're sharing. Pay attention to what others are commenting to and sharing. And just make sure that you're recognizing that this is still a professional community. And so just being aware of what you're posting on there, what you are choosing to engage in on this site, because again, it is a public site. And being able to be mindful of, do I really want this out in a professional setting? So here's my contact information. I also have other resources for CCA on our career page. And I'm just going to look at these questions again. Okay. So I have, are there any red flags on someone's profile that'll give employers or connections a bad impression? What should I avoid? Great question. So basically, red flags on someone's profile is someone who is not active, right? So again, you want to be active. You want to be able to be on there and showing and engaging with other people what it is that you are motivated by, what your mission is, what you're excited about. You want to be able to have those on there. And same thing, if you're looking at another person's profile, you want to be able to see that they're active. Also, just being aware of what are your values, right? Not everybody is always going to be happy with things that you're sharing. And so really understanding what is the impact of sharing certain posts, what is the impact of putting something out there, and what population does that go out to? What population does that serve when you post that content? And just being intentional of making sure that what you're posting is resonating with the industry and the people that you have on your page that you are trying to connect with and engage more with. I would say also just having information about yourself on LinkedIn in a professional light. So having good information when you're talking about your employment, not just having, this is where I worked, here's when I worked there, but being able to say, this is where I worked, and here's what I did there, here's what I accomplished there. Again, writing in the direction that you're wanting to go. LinkedIn is pretty predictive in its job search, and so when you are in that job search, or when LinkedIn is trying to compile things for your feed that it thinks that you want to see, having things in your profile and having groups and having connections and following different pages that all align with that end goal for you are going to be the best for you to be able to get to where you want to go, because then LinkedIn knows, oh, okay, this person is interested in administration. So we're going to give them these types of administration jobs because they have written and filled out their profile in a way that is talking about organization and communication and filing and something maybe like QuickBooks, so that it can really be able to tune that and make sure that you're seeing what it thinks is the most appropriate for you, rather than having things all over the place that are scattered, which is great to be, it's great to be diverse in your profile, but you want to still have a direction, and you still want to have a mission and that target of where you want to go with that. I have another question on here. I want to get a desk job, and most of my experience is in restaurants. Should I put all 14 of my restaurant jobs on my LinkedIn, or should I leave some off? I would ask myself, is there something? So I typically will start at the most recent and I'll work my way back. And if there is something that is further back that adds to what I've already talked about from my more recent positions, then I will add that. Whether that's a bullet or adding the job in general, that's kind of how I approach that. And so if, let's say, I worked at a position, let's say it was like the first or second position, and it was me just learning about the industry, but then I was able to grow off of that in my next 12 positions, and the other 12 positions were a lot more meaningful, then yeah, I might not talk about the first ones, because I want my information to be, again, targeted, but I also want it to be concise and clear for people to be able to get through and not just be scrolling forever, especially when LinkedIn is written in a way that goes typically from one category to the next. If you have other categories on your LinkedIn, like let's say your education or a project that's relevant to a desk job that you did, let's say you volunteered somewhere, you want people to be able to get to that other information that's relevant, rather than just scrolling through all of the different restaurant jobs. So yeah, ask yourself, does this older position really add to my portfolio that I have on here already? Should I ask previous employers for endorsements on LinkedIn? Yes, absolutely. If you still have a great relationship with the other employers, or not even necessarily your supervisors, but your coworkers and your colleagues, go ahead, yes, ask them for endorsements. Go on their page and endorse them also. Send them a message that says, hey, I'm gonna give you this endorsement for this. Would you mind just looking at my list of skills and also endorsing me? Or being able to write a really good positive summary about each other and saying like, hey, you were a really important person for me to work with in this previous job. I think I'm gonna write a summary for you. This is what I'm thinking about saying. Do you have any thoughts on that? And typically people are like, yeah, that sounds great, thanks so much. And then they will reciprocate a lot of times and say, hey, is there anything that I can maybe write for you? I think that you were pretty great at this also. So being able to write a summary or endorsing each other, I think is absolutely great. And it's 100% okay to ask other people to endorse you or to write a summary, especially if you're looking for that next position and you think that there's something that they can say and that'll be helpful for you. Typically, no more than a paragraph is plenty for that summary. I see another one that just came in. What does it mean by first, second degree for email addresses being seen? On the email address, I'm not quite sure exactly what the question is, but as far as first degree versus second degree connections, a first connection is a connection that you are directly connected with. So that would be like me already connected with my colleague Eileen, or me already connected with my supervisor. Whereas a second degree is I'm not connected with this person yet. We're not necessarily LinkedIn friends yet, but there is a person in the middle who knows both of us. So let's say if I wanted to connect with maybe someone from Johnson and Wales University. I know that my colleague worked at Johnson and Wales, so I might be able to ask her, hey, can you connect me with this other person who's working at Johnson and Wales that it says that you know? And then there's also the third and plus degree connections, which is basically you don't have any mutual friends, but somewhere along the way you might in the future. Is the summary important? Yes. I like my summary to be more of a narrative. So if we're thinking about our other experiences that we have, so our job experience and our projects that we've done and those endorsements, those are all pretty objective, right? They're statements of this is what I did, this is what I accomplished, this is the value that I served there. Whereas your summary is really that opportunity to write to the direction you want to go, right to the future. So talking about, this is really my vision for myself. This is what motivates me. This is what excites me when I'm moving forward. These are the values that I have. These are the values that I want to bring to a company. And here's how I use them. And so being able to write your summary in, sometimes it can be a very concise one paragraph summary, and some people have a couple of paragraphs. And so it's really what fits you and your style, but really you want that to be able to be, this is who I am, this is why that's important for me moving forward and where I want to go, and here are the skills that I have to help me get there. And one more question. How do I approach your contact connections on LinkedIn? Yeah, absolutely. So once you found a person that you want to connect with, you can hit the connect button. And then typically after you hit the connect button, then it'll ask, do you want to send a message? And I always send a message, because basically it's the same concept of, if you got a random friend request on Facebook, but you don't know who they are, what's the likelihood that you're going to actually accept that? Versus if I got a message on LinkedIn from someone that said, hi Erica, this is who I am, this is why I think that our connection would be valuable, then that gives me a little bit more to work with. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's great. And I'll add them. All it has to be really is that elevator pitch with a little bit of information on, here's why I think that our connection or our relationship can be beneficial. If you are reaching out to, let's say, someone who's in a company that you're interested in, hi, I'm really interested in working for this company, and I saw that you worked there. I saw that you have some really great experience there. I'm just wondering if we can connect and maybe talk a little bit about your experience there. Or if it's a recruiter, hi, I'm interested in applying here. I'd really like to learn a little bit from you about the company. If it's someone who you're thinking, okay, maybe I don't necessarily want to work here, or I'm not looking for a job here right now, but you have a skill that I'm looking for, but you're a leader in one of the fields that I'm really interested in, then, hey, I'm really impressed by the work that you do. I'd love to stay connected and just stay involved in what you're doing. And people on LinkedIn are very, very kind in this respect, because that's literally what LinkedIn is for. It's for building these connections. It's for being able to get to know each other, being able to build your professional network. And I have never had someone that I've reached out to wanting more information who was just like, no, I don't want to talk about that, or no, I don't want to talk to you. People are on LinkedIn for connections. And so every time that I connect with someone and they're responding back, they're saying, yeah, what can I assist with? Yeah, what questions do you have? Let's talk a little bit about that, so that you're able to have those connections and have those discussions and be able to really build and nurture those connections and relationships. And then also just kind of being aware of how many connections you're making each month, making sure that you have the sustenance and the ability to actually maintain those connections rather than going out and trying to connect with 100 different people in a day. There's no possible way that you can build up all 100 connections right then and there. You need to kind of start off slow, build off a couple of relationships at a time so that you can have those good conversations and those strong relationships that you can build up. And then from there, that's when you can start to add a couple more here and there. But just, again, being intentional about who it is that you are wanting to make those interactions with. All right, I see that we're coming up on time and I don't have any other questions, but I'm happy to connect to anybody who has other questions. Again, you can go into our page and look at our other resources, or you can email us, careerservices.cca@ccaurora.edu, and we would be happy to respond to any questions or any follow-ups that anybody has. But we're excited that you took the time out of your day to be able to participate in this, and I really look forward to the potential of working with anybody in the future.